All right, so I was going to do a Manly Manners video, and Mrs. W came in with a comment that came in from one of your wives about, and it went something, I'll paraphrase, went something like this. So my husband, I'm a faithful Christian. I can't get my husband to go to church with me because the few times he's been there, the guys that he meets that are regular church attendees are just these weak, spineless men that I have nothing in common with, and I don't want anything to do with that. That's not who I am. That's not who I'll ever be, and that's certainly not who I want to hang out with. And I was thinking about that, and that really resonated with me because that's my biggest gripe about many of the organized churches and the religion is that this premise that anyone who is a believer in Christ has to be this weak, milk toast, meek and mild, nothing of a man, which doesn't appeal to me. I mean, you all guys are made how they're made. Some of us are hyper aggressive. Some of us are hyper competitive. Some of us are a little more intellectual. You know, we're all different. And this idea that we have to dumb down our physical prowess, we have to dumb down our desire for risk and for danger, we have to dumb down our intellect to be part of this group is, well, it's not appealing. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking of this quote that I came across years ago, and I was going to use this as an example of this organization, this church organization, how it was a plan to misconstrue and to portray Christ in a way that he never was, to try to attack and destroy and beat down humanity or masculinity. And the thing that the quote was, it was something like the church. I was paraphrasing. I was thinking in my mind that the church has been very effective at declawing the Lion of Judah. And if you don't know what the Lion of Judah is, the Lion of Judah is the lineage of what Christ came from, and each of the 12 tribes of Israel was associated with an animal, and Judah was the lion, referring to, it was prophecy referring to the first and second coming of Christ. So I went in searching this quote, and I realized for all these years that I had been completely wrong about it, that this wasn't a quote that I could use to attack organized religion. It was a quote that was basically saying it like it was. And I read it 2 or 3 times, and I thought, good grief, I had that wrong the whole way. Let me read this quote to you really quickly, and then we'll talk about this. This was from a British writer, a woman by the name of Dorothy Sawyers, that was born in 1893. She died in 1957. She was a British author, and she's the one that penned this quote. Now listen to this. The quote is, "The people who hanged Christ never, to do them justice, accused him of being a bore. On the contrary, they thought him too dynamic to be safe. It has been left for later generations to muffle up that shattering personality and surround him with the atmosphere of tedium." That's some good writing there. "We have very effectively paired the claws of the Lion of Judah, certified him meek and mild, and recommend him as a fitting household pet for pale curates and pious old ladies." What's a curate? A curate is like an assistant to a pastor, maybe a deacon, or all of those non-clergy members that many of the very men that we meet that we disdain, that we don't have anything in common with, and we certainly don't want to be like. Pale curates. I thought that was a good way of looking at it. So, right there, she summed it up. So, what the church has done over the last several hundred years has according to Dorothy, has turned Christ into this tame house pet. I don't mean to be irreverent here. I'm irreverent, but I just don't know how else to say it, and that's very true. It's very appealing. A personality. It's very appealing to old ladies. It's very appealing to children, and we don't want to scare the children, of course, when we tell the stories of Christ. So we omit all of the things that maybe are a little bit might show a little bit of a dynamic personality, as she puts it, and we have all of these photographs or these paintings and this gentle Jesus, meek and mild, and lying with the lamb and all of that. And what we have been sold is this idea of meekness. The meekness of Christ is weakness, and it is not. Because if we go back, if we strip away all of that nonsense, everything, all of that poison that has been taught us throughout all life, and we look at the facts, who are the men that really were held up as heroes of God back in the day? Just a couple examples. We have Gideon. He was a general. We have Samson. He was a mighty man. He was a soldier. We have a man after a man after God's own heart. We have King David, who, even though he did horrible things, had his best friend murdered, and so he could steal his best friend's wife, and hundreds of other things, God called him a man after his own heart. Now, was King David, was he sitting on his hands in the pew? Was he a pale curate? Was he one of these gray men, these milquetoast men that we all despise, that we've come in contact with at many of these churches? He was not. And we look at all of those heroes. We look at, even we go to the New Testament, we look at Paul, who wrote, I believe, over half of the New Testament. He was a firebrand. He was very non-conventional. He was very much a liberal. He was very much anti-establishment. He twisted the tail of the establishment. He mixed things up. He caused huge fights and huge issues. And we take Christ himself. When there were times when he was really upset, twice he went in, cleansed the temple, scared all of the people out of there, turned over the tables. Was that gentle Jesus, meek and mild? Yes, there was a time and a place for kindness, and don't never confuse meekness with weakness. But this idea that we need to put away everything that makes us masculine, that makes us men, that makes us soldiers and firefighters, or good business people, or doctors, or whatever it is that you do, construction workers, to put that away and shelf and suppress all of that so that we can conform to this false notion of this meek, weak, milquetoast man, that's just not the case. So I understand and I can sympathize with you, but if you don't like, if you live in a small town and you have a small church and you go in there and you run into this and you don't like that, well, maybe it's time to change that. And I'm speaking to myself as well. I have I've made that excuse many times, and Mrs. W, well, what about this? We try to go here and try to go there, and I go in there and I'm expecting, these heroes of the Old Testament, but with the swords and such, but you don't typically find that. So I don't know what the answer is, other than take heart in the fact that I believe, it seems to me anyway, that God would much prefer a man that went out boldly and aggressively with the best of intentions, and to actually a man of action, willing to do something, than someone that was too afraid, sat on the sidelines and did nothing. So don't buy into this nonsense. And I've ran into it personally. I'll close with this. My own, my wife and I are members of a denominational church, and I'll tell you what, with the success of this channel and the number of people that I have the ability to reach, I have heard that they would absolutely love to get me rolled into their program, into one of their colleges, and get become a pastor or whatever, and try to utilize what we've built with this channel to spread their message. But they can't do it. They don't want to do it because I'm not safe for them. They don't like they don't like the guns. They don't like I just won't conform to their idea of what a clergyman should be, or what an idea of what a pastor should be. It's too dangerous for them. It's too scary. It's too unorthodox. It doesn't fit the mold, and so they can't have it. And which I think is laughable, because the reach that we have here and the community that we've built here is so much bigger than anything that you could do as a pastoring in a small church, or holding a little evangelistic meeting over here. Not that that's not important. I'm not saying that. Maybe you meet the person, or you bring the message to the gospel to the person that is the next Paul, the next David, or what have you. But I understand. So do I have an answer for your question? And I did this video because I get this a lot. No, I don't know. As you know, I'm not a big fan of turnkey organized religion. The important thing is this: what the church is. It's a meeting of like-minded individuals, and this idea that it has to be in a building under a steeple with a cross on the door or whatever it's that's not the case. The best churches, the best, most fulfilling ways to learn and educate and to lift one another up in the body is to be in one another's homes. If you know someone that's a fellow believer, start loosely. Say meet Saturday, meet Sunday, whatever is your day of worship, and go to a coffee shop and sit down and have a topic and talk about it, or be in each other's homes. So the fact that you don't go to a organized religion in an organized building and something, that's nothing wrong with that. That's fine for a lot of people, but for a lot of other folks, it's not. So I guess the answer is be strong in your faith. Don't compromise. When you go out to eat, say grace with your family. It doesn't matter who's around, or just make these bold statements, and God will honor you. And what you'll do is you'll find like-minded people that maybe didn't have the courage to speak up. And that will start building friendships, and that could start into a small group in your community where you guys can meet one another. Because it's important to meet. It's important to be together with fellow Christians, just to encourage one another. No man can be an island. It's a lot of people think, well, I'm just going to move to the mountains, and I'm going to read my Bible, and I'm going to do my thing, and I'm not going to have any influence on the outside world. No, that's not what happens. That's not the best way to do it. Sometimes you're strong, and you can be a strength for other people. Sometimes you're weak. And you need to be the recipient of that strength. So just be bold in your faith. Don't put it out. I'm not an advocate of lecturing anyone. Lead by example, and preach a sermon every day of your life, and speak only when absolutely necessary. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.